Today we're going to discuss rates and unit rates. So a rate is a ratio that compares two different quantities with different kinds of units. So for example, 100 words per 2 minutes. So that means I can type 100 words in 2 minutes. So if you set the timer, that's how much I could do it. Now, I'm not saying 100 words per minute or 100 words per 2 minutes plus 5 extras. I'm just straight up saying 100 words for every 2 minutes that I type. So the special thing about rates is when they're simplified so that it has a denominator of 1, it is called a unit rate. So when they talk about a unit rate, a unit is talking about for every one. So we're going to write the two quantities as a rate first, and then we're going to divide them both, the numerator and the denominator, by the same number, which is going to be the number in the denominator. And then this will create a denominator of 1. A single unit obviously means 1. And then we're going to write the unique units of measurement for both. So let's look at the example that we had from above. So we had 100 words every 2 minutes, and my goal is to create a unit rate. I want to know how many words per 1 minute. So I can take this and I can divide it by 2 because the denominator is 2. And 100 divided by 2 is going to give me 50 words per 1 minute. Remember, we can use that fraction bar as the word per. I'll write a little note here. Fraction bar can be read as per. So I can do 50 words per 1 minute, or I could write it out, 50 words per minute. And we can also write it this way, 50 words, per minute, if you want to write it that way with that little forward slash. So a rate, remember, a rate is comparing two things. So for this one, this is comparing characters to seconds. And then the unit rate is where we're taking the denominator of 30 and converting it to a denominator of 1. So in this case, we're simplifying by 30. You could also just take, like it says here, or the numerator divided by the denominator. So you could take 60 and just divide it by 30. So let's look at some examples, and it says determine if the following are rates or unit rates. Circle all the unit rates, and if it is a rate, then rewrite it as a unit rate. So remember, unit rates, if you look up at this little box, unit rates are the ones that have the denominator of 1, and the regular rate is one that you could simplify down. So take a second. I want you to circle the ones that are unit rates for me. So $3.99 per 1 pound is a unit rate. $3.94 per 1 pound is also a unit rate. And the rest of them are just straight rates. Now we can simplify these and turn them into unit rates. So for this one here in the middle, if you just divide the numerator by the denominator, so you're just going to divide them, 147.5 divided by 2.5, and remember you can use a calculator for this if you need to. You end up with 59. Now how do you write that as a rate, or I'm sorry, as a unit rate? You're going to write it as 59 miles per hour. Remember, the fraction bar means per. So I can circle that. You can also write the word per if you want to, P-E-R. Same thing with this one here. All I have to do is divide the numerator by the denominator. So I'm going to take 11 and divide it by 4 to figure out how much money, because this is money, over boxes. And I end up getting $2.75 per box. So I'm just looking at the label to see what I'm using as my per for that problem. Okay, if I look at the next one here, all I'm going to do is divide. So it's 3/38 divided by 16. And when you get the answer to that one, you get 21.125 points, because I was finding points per game. So I'm just writing the label for what the two things I'm comparing are. Go ahead and try the last one. See if you can find the unit rate for that and label it correctly. So you're just going to divide them. So you have 34 divided by 4. And when you divide that, you get 8.5. And when we label this, we're just going to use it in the same order. Breaths per hour. And you can also use that /. All right, so how does this compare to proportions or to ratio tables, which we've also been doing? So example 1, you pay $27 for 3 pizzas. What is the cost for 1 pizza? So we can solve this problem by simplifying the fraction to have a denominator of 1 or by using a ratio table. You could also use this by cross multiplication or the division method, which was what we did on the other side. So we did 27 divided by 3 on the previous page, and we got $9 per pizza if you just divide them. 27 for 3, what's the cost for 1? Now if we make a ratio for that, or a rate, we're going to compare pizza. I'm sorry, I flip-flopped up. Money first, because money is first in the problem. So money over pizza. And if I read, there's $27 for 3 pizzas, so 27 for 3 pizzas, and it wants to know what is the cost. Well, I don't know the money, so that's going to be my variable for 1 pizza. Now, I could figure out you could cross multiply. So you could do 3x is equal to 27 and then divide by 3 that way. And you still get x is equal to 9. You could simplify it. You could say 3 divided by 3 is 1. 27 divided by 3 would be 9. That would be okay. Or you can also use a ratio table. So I know that 3 pizzas is $27. I need to figure out that magic 1 pizza. So I could simplify this. 3 down to 1 would be divide by 3. So I could do the same thing here. Divide it by 3 and I get 9. And then I could just fill in this empty blank here. I could go forwards and multiply by 2 to get 18. But my real answer I want is right there. So my answer for this one was $9 per pizza. So there's always more than one way that you can solve these unit rate problems, and not one of them is right and not one of them is wrong. You just need to be able to defend why you're doing it that way. So if we look at example 2, a chef buys 6 pounds of salmon fillets for $54. How much would the chef pay per pound of salmon fillets? So remember, you always need to look to see what are you comparing. In this one, we're comparing pounds to that $54. So we're comparing pounds to money. So it's 6 pounds to $54. And it wants to know how much he will pay per pound. Per pound is per 1 pound. So I'm going to put a 1 here. And I can put the x here. And remember, there's more than one way that you can solve a problem. So you can cross multiply it. So you get 6x is equal to 54. And you can solve that problem. Divide by 6, and I'm left with x is equal to 9. You could simplify this. You could say 6 divided by 6 is 1. 54 divided by 6 is 9. So you could do it that way. Or remember, you could use that ratio table. If a chef buys 6 pounds of salmon for $54, so 54 is going to go here in the money and with the 6. How much is he going to pay for 1? So I need to get to here. Well, how could I get to 6 from 1 to 1? Divide by 6. Divide by 6. And I have 9. I could also take 6 and divide it by 2 to get that middle number. 54 divided by 2 will give me 27. So my final answer for this one would be $9 per pound. So I want you to try and find me the unit rate for that on your own one, the one about the Japanese bullet train. I want you to fill in, either do the simplification method or you could do the proportion. And then I also want you to try to fill in the ratio table. I'm going to give you some help right here. I'll give you hours 1, 2, and 3. You need to figure out the miles. So go ahead and pause, and I want to see if you can figure that one out on your own. So you're comparing miles to hours. And I can go 558 miles in 3 hours, and it wants to know how far I go every hour. That's talking about every 1 hour. So if you do the proportion method, you cross multiply here. I'm left with 3x is equal to 558. Divide it by 3, divide by 3. I'm left with x is equal to 186. So that's one method. You also could have plugged it into the ratio table. So I can go 558 miles in 3 hours. If I take that and I get to 1, I have to divide by 3, and I'm left with 186. And then to go forward to fill in that 2 slot, I have to multiply by 2. So 186 multiplied by 2 is 372, but this is the piece I'm looking for. So my final answer is 186 miles per hour. All right, and then go ahead and try that last one for the sliced turkey. I want you to do a method of the simplification and a method of the ratio table to try to figure out your answer for that. So we're comparing the cost to the ounces. I have $8 for 16 ounces, and it wants to know how much the price is for each ounce of turkey. So I want 1 ounce of turkey, and I want to know the price. So your cross multiplication method, it's going to be 16x is equal to 8. And divide by 16, divide by 16. You get x is equal to 2. Oh, I'm sorry, not 2. My mistake. You actually get x is equal to half, 0.5. Don't be scared of decimals. It's money. Decimals and money go together. You can also, remember, you can also do that simplification method. You can divide by 16. Just do 8 divided by 16 as a fraction. And you still get the same answer, which is 0.5. For this one, I put the 16 ounces the whole way out here with my $8. And then my goal was to figure out for 1. So I went backwards and I divided by 16. Divided by 16, and I still got 0.5, which is a half. And then I went forward and I filled this gap in with a 8. I divided it in half, so I divided by 2 to fill in that missing hole. And I got 4. But this was the piece I wanted, so it should be 50 cents, not 5 cents, per ounce. So there's always more than one way that you can solve a math problem. All of these ways are correct. Whatever way works best for you is what I want for you to use. So remember, you can just do straight up division if that makes you happy. You can do a ratio table if that makes you happy. You can simplify, or you can do that proportion. So what I want for you to do is I want you to do, let's start with number 1 and number 2. Find the unit rate. So for number 1, I want to know how many miles per 1 hour. And for this one, I want to know how much does 1 pound cost. So go ahead and pause. I want you to see if you can figure those two out on your own. Go back and look at the other examples if you need to. And here are your answers for number 1 and number 2. I used the division method, not the simplification. I just divided 24 divided by 3. Be careful with number 2. It wants to know how much does 1 pound cost. So you have to take the cost and divide it by pounds, because I need to get pounds down to 1, not the cost down to 1. Whatever number you want to get down to the unit or of 1, you have to put that as the denominator. So go ahead. I want you to do number 3 and number 4. You can solve them however you like. Unpause when you're ready to see your answers. And again, I just used division. I just divided, so it wanted heartbeats each minute. So I took the beats divided by the minutes. And the same for this one. I took the breaths does she take per minute. So I took breaths divided by minutes, and I got 12 breaths per minute. So go ahead and solve number 5 and number 6. And then here are your answers for 5 and 6. Again, I asked for revolutions in a minute, so I did revolutions divided by minutes. And this one, it wanted my rate per minute, so the rate was the words per minute. So I divided words divided by minutes, and I got 40 words per minute. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out which store has the better buy, store A or store B. So you need to do some division, and I'll do one with you together. So I want to know which store has the best price for liquid detergent, store A or store B. So I'm going to take the price and divide it by the ounces, because I want to know how much is 1 ounce worth. And you're going to put the money on top for all of these because I'm trying the best price. And so I'm going to take the $10.64 divided by 84 ounces. And I get this answer, which is not money, but I can round it. It's going to round to 13 cents. Think of who's that knocking at my back door, 5 or more, raise the score. There's a 6, so it's going to round this to 13. And then the next one, I'm going to take the money, divide it by the ounces. So I have $5.89 divided by 48 ounces. And I end up with a rounded answer of 0.12 cents. So which store has the better buy on detergent? Which store is going to give me the better deal? Store B, because it's a less price per ounce of detergent. So I want you to give me the best buy for each of these. So go ahead, you're dividing the price divided by whatever they're asking you for. Make sure you're careful with your rounding, and then tell me which store is the better buy, A or B. And here are your answers for those problems. Be careful with your rounding. If you weren't careful, especially in this one here, if you weren't careful, you got that they were the same price, and that's not true. So if you have any questions, make sure that you check in and see your teacher.